Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is denounce. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might have heard the verb denounce used is to mean to publicly declare that something is wrong or evil. I chose this word today because I've been thinking a lot about the events that occurred in Atlanta last week. 8 people were murdered in a hateful and evil act, and it has been a very painful experience for many people, including some of my former students. I've seen this word denounce used, so I thought it would be good for us to talk about it, that there fortunately are many public figures, our elected officials, some celebrities and others that have publicly said that what occurred is evil, and that many attacks on Asian American and Pacific Islanders that they have experienced during this last year during the pandemic have all been wrong and evil. And it's important that we as a society denounce things that are wrong or evil so that we're not encouraging others to do these evil things. A second and less common way that you might hear the verb denounce used is to mean to announce the formal end of something. So generally this is done by a country or the leader of a country who's going to terminate or end a treaty or some other contract or agreement. You should know that denounce is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're going to drop the E from the base verb and then add ing to form denouncing. To make the past tense and participle forms of this verb, you just need to add the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. The base verb, denounce, ends in a S sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a T sound. Denounced, denounced. You'll be happy to know there are no additional meanings through phrasal verbs, so that's going to allow us to do a little verb tense practice with our verb of the day. Today, we're going to make some sentences in the present perfect and the simple future using will. Let's start with the present perfect. We're using this verb tense to describe something that happened at an unknown point in the past. Could have been an hour ago, could have been a year ago, and that just might not matter to the action that we're trying to communicate. We'll also use this to describe an action that started in the past and it continues into the present. To make the present perfect, we're going to use a present form of have, so that's have with the subjects I, you, we, and they, or it's has when the subject is he, she, or it. So our structure is have or has, and then the participle form of the verb, which happens to be the same thing as the past tense because this is a regular verb. Let's look at an affirmative example. Many leaders have denounced the murder of 8 people in Atlanta. So they have publicly shared this is evil and wrong. If you want to make a negative present perfect sentence, you need to insert not after have or has. You may hear some people use the contractions haven't or hasn't. That's fine. But if it's easier for you to not use the contractions, that's okay too. You don't have to use the contractions. Let's look at another example sentence. The prisoner hasn't denounced the terrorist group. So sometimes we expect people who have been arrested or convicted of a particular crime to recognize that they have made an error and acknowledge what they did, sort of evil or wrong. And in this case, it hasn't happened. If you want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect, you're going to start with have or has, then we'll have our subject, and then the participle form of the verb. Here's another. Have your city's leaders denounced racism and discrimination? Have they publicly said this is wrong and it has no place in our society? Now let's look at making some sentences in the simple future. Today we're going to do that with will. You might remember that there are several ways to talk about the future in English. Will is one way. We tend to use will when we're discussing facts, we're making predictions, we're making an offer or a promise. The nice thing about using will is that our structure is going to stay the same no matter what our subject is. So let's take a look at an affirmative example. They will denounce the military attack during a speech later today. So our structure here is will and then the base verb. Okay? That's all we need. And if I was talking about one person, it would be exactly the same structure. This sentence is expressing, again, someone is going to say something that's evil or bad in a public forum, like a speech, at a point in the future. Now, if you want to make a negative simple future sentence using will, you need to insert not after will. You might hear some people use the contraction form, won't. Here's another example. He won't denounce conspiracy theories. So he won't say they are wrong or evil. Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple future using will, start your sentence with will. Then use your subject and then the base verb. Will we all denounce violence? Now, let's spend just a couple minutes looking at a few words that are related to our verb denounce. The first word is the noun form of this word, denouncement. This is the action of publicly declaring that something is wrong or evil. Here's an example. The doctor was criticized for not making a stronger denouncement of the idea of injecting disinfectants. Now, it's been nearly a year since this occurred, but you might remember there was a public leader in the United States that thought it was a good idea that people essentially drink bleach to prevent COVID-19. Nobody should do that. That is an awful idea. There was a doctor who was standing by, just kind of like, oh, no, don't do that, but didn't strongly say it. And that doctor has been criticized for not being more public in her expression that that is a dangerous and horrible idea. The last word we're going to look at today is the noun denouncer. You can probably tell from the suffix, the ending of this word, this is a person who publicly declares something is wrong or evil. Here's an example. Alexei Navalny is a denouncer of political corruption in Russia. This is a real person who has fought a great deal and put his life on the line to fight corruption. I thought he was a really good mental picture for me of someone who publicly declares that something is wrong. I hope this video has helped you better understand this particular verb. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.